this, you're getting $1 million worth of instruction for free. I prefer smart techniques. Technique that you would try, that if you get it, you score points. If you don't get it, you didn't lose points. Dan Gable, one of our legends of wrestling in America, he was a very, very, very good wrestler. What he had more than anybody else, his gas tank was twice the size of anybody else's gas tank. You're thinking about, let go of my chin, you're hurting my neck, I can't breathe. And you forgot about the first commandment of the 10 commandments of wrestling, thou shalt not be pinned. You forget commandment number 1. The stronger the person is, the more oxygen he needs to feed the muscles that he's pushing you with. More is better in a lot of things in life. In sports, less is better. What you're trying to do is bring out your strengths and hide your weaknesses. In reverse, you want to bring out his weaknesses and hide his strengths. When I'm on top of somebody, riding or holding on, if any part of my body is touching the mat other than my toes, I'm wrong. And I ignored the coaches constantly because they didn't know what they were talking about. You're training to win wrestling by running, by lifting weights, by climbing rope. Why? How's that going to make you a better wrestler? My job is to make them quit. And when you quit, you're quitting between your ears. That's an intellectual decision of, I don't want to be out here anymore. I can't win. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. Very few people get pinned just on technique alone. That's why you very, very seldom see a pin in the first minute.
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of In Life and MMA, a show that's dedicated to real-life challenges as well as athletic endeavors. I'm honored to have here with me Wade Schalles. That's how you pronounce your name, right? Wade Schalles.
Yeah, it rhymes with the city of Dallas.
Okay.
Schalles.
Schalles. Okay. He's a true hero of mine. I've been watching his instructionals that he shot with Josh Barnett and Scientific Wrestling. But I did some more research, and Coach, I found your older videos with the legal pain and the pinning and all these other instructionals. So I have a huge collection of your work. I'm looking at the resume here, and it's quite impressive. I mean, you have the nickname the Finisher. I found several other nicknames. Plastic Man, the father of funk wrestling. I don't know if these are accurate. You are a Guinness World Record holder, right? You have you hold the world record for the most career victories and the most career false pins.
Yes.
You have set an all-time NCAA record with 106 pins. You are a 4-time NCAA champion, and you are a technical elevator. Are you the creator of the Spladle?
The Spladle, yes.
The lazy Man Cradle, and the Clemson Roll. I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with the Spladle, but not the rest, the other two. And you are an All-American in 5 disciplines, including folkstyle, freestyle, Greco Roman, sambo, and judo. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
You're as decorated as they get when it comes to the sport of wrestling. You are an amazing wrestler, but what's more important is that you are an athlete who puts his mind, over his technique. Like, you try to find ways to make your technique more functional.
That's correct.
Okay, let's start. I have a couple of questions for you. What sparkled your initial passion for wrestling when you were a kid?
What got me started? I was the youngest boy in the neighborhood. I was 2 years younger than everybody else. But I wanted to go out play with my friends or with those people because I had nobody else. And they didn't want to have a snot-nosed little kid running around with them. So when they'd run away from me, I'd have to run harder and longer to stay with them so they couldn't get rid of me. When they had a 20-inch bicycle, I had a 16-inch bicycle. So I had to pedal harder and longer to stay with them so they couldn't lose me. When they got a 26-inch bike, I graduated to a 20-inch bike. And I still had to pedal my backside off to keep up with them. So I was always competing, trying to keep up with, and then when they decided they couldn't get rid of the little guy, they would try to push me down or punch me and make me go away. Well, I got tough and I threw them down, and said no. And then they realized, well, he's younger, he may be smaller, but he's pretty damn tough. Maybe he's earned the right to be with us. So early on, I was fighting to have friends, to be able to go out and play baseball with them, or kickball, or ride a bike and go somewhere. I had to get tough, or I stayed home and read a book. And so I think that was the start of my competitive nature. Then of course wrestling occurred. I started in junior high in 8th grade, and didn't know a damn thing about the sport. But I learned real quick, and maybe in the first hour of practice on the first day, that it's better to be on top versus on the bottom. Now, how do you get on top? Well, that's probably what we will be talking about for the next half hour or hour. How do you get on top? What's the important things?
And stay on top. Coach, is there one of your coaches that you consider them to be your mentor, you look up to, and you believe that they taught you most of the things you know? I know a lot of things you discovered on your own, but obviously your coaches had a significant role in helping you develop your game.
None of them were really that way technically that they could help. Like my college coach, Bob Bubb, who was one of the best there ever was in college coaching in America. He used to always say, "Wait, you must have taught Wade all these things?" He'd always say, "I didn't teach him anything. My job was to get him to the match on time and feed him after the weigh-ins. That was my job. Keep him happy, get him to the match on time, and feed him." That's what I did to keep Wade winning. And as humble as that was, as funny as it was true. He didn't try to screw me up at, teaching me this and teaching me that. He knew he had someone special, someone different. And he was smart enough to go, I'm getting the hell out of his way. I'm going to get him to the match on time. I'm going to make sure he gets on the scale to weigh in. Now he would help me in a lot of social, ways and other ways, to keep me happy and wanting to come back to practice. And, but you have to know when to back off as a coach. When you have a great wrestler, you want to take credit for that wrestler. That's a natural instinct. I coach him. And, there's been so many great wrestlers ruined by a coach who kept on trying to teach him more and more so that, he could say, yeah, I taught him that, and I taught him that, and I taught him that. Oh, yeah, that one too. And now the kid's there's so much he had to learn that he's losing because he's doing too many things and trying to do too many things. So more great wrestlers are ruined by coaches than are made by coaches, by overcoaching. What I found very quickly, with a lot of respect for my coaches, they were good men, they worked hard, they did the best they could, but when you don't know what you're talking about, you can try really hard to share that information, but if the information is flawed, even though they're giving the best knowledge they have and giving of themselves, it doesn't do you any good. And I realized very quickly that they didn't know what they were talking about. Now, maybe I was being arrogant, being, in 8th grade, and they were, 25 or 35 years old, of telling them. I didn't tell them, but I thought, yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. My mother was a medical doctor, and I would read some of the medical journals that she had at home, and I would look at anatomy text of how body parts work, how muscles react over time to fatigue, and I just went into, the idea of wrestling is to be on top. How do you get on top? And I watched videos of instructors, and I realized that most of them, and even today, when I watch videos that you'll find online, and you have videos of me, I'd like to say they're the best in the world that's out there, because I've watched the others, and they're okay. But what I try to tell you is, look at your body. Okay, let's look at how tall are you. In sports, if you are 5'6" and you want to play basketball, no matter how hard you train to jump, you'll never be the center in a basketball game at 5'6". 6'1", 6'3", maybe, not 5'5". But coaches don't, in wrestling, I'll use that as an analogy, wouldn't look at that and say, you shouldn't be a center. What they would do is they would try to train you to jump and get stronger legs so you go higher. They wouldn't say, what the hell are you doing? 5'6", you'll never be a center. They would persist on trying to teach you to be a center. If you were 300 pounds and you wanted to be a free safety in football, that's the defensive backfield, you're never going to survive that, because at 300 pounds, you're not very quick. I mean, you're not going to run the 40 in 4.2. So all the receivers would run right past you and catch the ball and go for a touchdown. At 300 pounds, you cannot be a defensive back. Now, you'd be a hell of a nose guard or a linebacker, but not defensive back at 300 pounds. So if you look at your body, you can identify, where you should play in football, where you should be in basketball, what techniques you should learn in wrestling versus the techniques you shouldn't learn. And I studied that, and I went, these coaches, every coach teaches the same thing. I use this as an analogy for football and wrestling, and the analogy and what I'm about to say the story is not true. I made it up. But the analogy, I think, would be easy for people to understand. Back in 1842, in Boston, Massachusetts, there was this athletic director who went on vacation with his wife to England, and they saw wrestling over there. He says, wow, look at this. It's wrestling. We don't have anything like that in America. I bet we could have that in America, at my school. So after his vacation, he comes home and he goes to his football coach. Hey, coach, how would you like to earn another $500 a season, and I want you to be my wrestling coach? And the football coach says, I don't know anything about wrestling. What the hell is wrestling? And the athletic director says, well, you tackle him in football, right? If the guy has the ball, you grab him and throw him down? Yeah. Okay, we'll call that a double leg in wrestling. So, see, you already know a little bit about wrestling. You know how to tackle somebody. So why don't you do this? And the guy goes, well, $500. Well, the wife could use that. Okay. So he starts a wrestling program. He has 10 wrestlers show up. And these 10 wrestlers, so he teaches them a double leg and an escape. But his problem was, if you're the first coach, there's no videos to look at. There's no book to read. There's no other coaches to go, hey, Bob or Dave, what do I do here? Help me out. How do I teach this? He doesn't have anybody to talk to. So he has to make everything up. So he makes everything up, and he teaches his kids. And then a couple years later, those 10 kids go out and they coach at 10 high schools, and they have 10 kids each, and then they graduate and they go out. Now we have 100 kids out there coaching. And before long, we are where we are today in America. We have probably 400,000 wrestlers wrestling, and I don't know, 50,000 coaches. And what are they teaching? Well, when you challenge them, and I challenge them all the time, even when I was young, why are we doing this? Are you challenging me, Wade? Well, yeah, I guess I am. Tell me why. And because I said so. Have you ever heard that as a parent or said that or when you were a child? Because I said so. And so I said, well, that's unfortunately, coach, I utmost respect, that's not good enough. Because I said so doesn't mean much to me. Tell me why, mechanically, physiologically, why does this work? And what I found was then when they couldn't answer the question, they go, well, it's because my coach taught me that. Well, where did he learn? Well, his coach taught him that. Okay, where did he learn? Well, his coach taught. Before long, we got back to the 1842 coach who didn't have a clue what the hell he was doing. And we've been doing the same thing over and over and over and over again for, 2 centuries, or at least a century and a half. And most of it is not good stuff. It's the stuff that their coach taught and their coach taught, and they never figured out, should it work? And I said, guys, we got to get together here and, try to figure this out. Now, if you are short, now when what should you teach your athletes? I would put my athletes at least in 2 different divisions, if not 3 in the wrestling room. I would have short guys in his weight class, medium size height-wise, and tall guys. Well, coach, how do I know if I'm a tall or short guy? Well, when you weigh in and the guy you're going to wrestle is next to you at weigh-ins, are you taller than him, same height, or shorter than him? Duh. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out if you're short or tall, And okay, now that you know that you're short, okay, then you shouldn't be a center in basketball because you're short. Duh. Well, in wrestling, there are techniques that are designed to work really well for short people. And those same techniques make a tall wrestler become a loser very quickly. They lose because they can't do the short stuff. Now, what do short people have that the tall people don't have? They have 3 things. They are stronger, always, than the tall kid. They are quicker, speed-wise, zip, 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 than the tall kid because of their power. And they have more strength. More strength. See, strength and speed equals power. So they have more power, they have more strength, and they're faster. That's that's the benefits of being short in your weight class. Tall guys in reverse doesn't have any one of those 3 skills. They have 3 things that the short guy doesn't have. The tall guy has reach. I can reach further than you can because my arms are longer. Okay? I have flexibility that you don't have. Tall guys are loosey-goosey, whereas the short guys, they have almost 0 flexibility. So you have reach, flexibility, and what's the third one? I'll think of it in a minute. Reach, flexibility, and leverage. If you're going to pick something up with a long stick and you get it under and you can lever something up by using the length. So you have those 3 things as a tall guy that the short guy doesn't have. So when I teach in my classroom, when I coached, I would divide my team at least into 2 groups. I'd line them all up. If you're short in your weight class, get over there. If you're tall, get over there, and separate them. Now, I would never, ever, and I think this is a major mistake of coaches, you don't drill the team with the same thing. Because whatever you're drilling, a double leg, a duck under, an ankle pick, a stand up, a cradle, a half Nelson, whatever you're going over, those moves are designed for specific body types. A double leg, a football tackle, a double leg tactic. People who can do that, short, powerful, fast. The tall kids, you could train them until they're blue in the face. They are never going to understand or be able to get a double leg. They're not fast enough to get in. They're not strong enough to pull the legs in. And they're not powerful enough to hit the guy and knock him on his ass. So you're teaching half your class by going over double legs for everybody. You're teaching half your team how to lose. I'm not sure that's a good strategy, coach. You want to teach your kids how to win, not how to lose. Get off the bottom, stand up. Short guys only have that far to go to stand up. They're little short squatty bodies. And they're explosive. They're like a stick of dynamite. Boom! They can go from down to their feet. Nanosecond. The tall kid looks like a newborn fawn trying to, out of the womb of a big deer, trying to stand up. They can't get to their feet. By the time they can get up to their feet, the short guy has chopped the arm out from underneath him. And now, next thing you know, the tall kid's eating mat. His face is on the mat, eating it because he can't get up. So if you're teaching all your team at the same time, we're going to go over stand-ups now for the next 5 minutes. Ready? Stand up. Again, base below. The short guys, they practice stand-ups, and they're practicing something they're going to be able to get in a match and score points with. The tall kid is never going to get up, never going to get up, never going to get up. So why are you teaching them to stand up? You're teaching them how to lose. He's just going to tire himself out trying to stand up. On chop, referee's position, chop his arm, knock him down, flatten him out. Short guys can chop a skinny guy's arm out from underneath him real quick. The tall kid with strong arms, he can be chopping on the strong-armed short guy and not get his arm down. So to teach the top guy how to chop a tight waist to knock a guy down, you're wasting your time. He doesn't have the power to do that. So I won't have to go in and try to break it down with all the different techniques, double leg duck under, fireman's carry, and so on. But the idea is there are definitely at least two distinctive different types of styles of wrestling, and there's probably 6 or 8 different styles. And you have to, as a coach, look at your athlete and go, how can he win? What can he do based on his body type? And then you drill him with those techniques. So by making everybody do the same thing, you're coaching half your team to lose. And when then they lose, well, you got to try harder. You got to work harder. You got to dedicate yourself. Coach, I can't do these things. So you have to analyze your kids in your room. And if you're an individual listening to this conversation, well, answer the question. Are you tall? Are you medium? Are you short? What are your skill sets? Now you have to blend your skill sets with the myriad, dozens, hundreds of different techniques that are out there. Which ones of those techniques work best for your body? And then you want to drill those things and forget all the other things. It's not how much you learn in wrestling that makes you a champion. It's how damn good you can be at a few things. One of our best wrestlers we've ever had, Jordan Burroughs, who is a multi-time world champion, probably 4 or 5 world titles. And he's amazing. He's not very tall in his weight class, and he has one move. One. A double leg, a football tackle. He doesn't do anything else. Now, does he know everything else? Yeah. Could you get him in a clinic and say, show me a high cross, show me a duck under, show me a fireman's carry? He knows them all. But when he walks on the mat, he does one thing, double leg. If that doesn't work, he double legs. If that doesn't work, he comes back with another double leg. He knocked everybody in the world off their feet and onto their ass with a double leg because he had the skills of speed, power, strength. He figured what worked for him, and he made it happen. So you have to figure out what you're as a coach. This is just, if you're listening to this, you're getting $1 million worth of instruction for free. Base your instruction on the athlete's skill sets. And don't allow him to do things that he can't do based on his body type. Cradles. Short guys like Burroughs can't do a cradle. Their arms are too short, like a little Tyrannosaurus Rex. They can't get their hands around the whole body, around the head, around the leg to lock their hands. Tall kids, oh my God. We're working on cradles because you have the long reach, to get your hands locked on a cradle. Half Nelsons, the little short, strong, squatty body, they'll turn over. They'll put a half Nelson on. They'll turn your ass over with a half Nelson. Tall guys can't get their arm in there. Can't get it's really hard for them to do a half Nelson. So you have moves that work for certain body types. And then don't even get me started about the mental makeup of each athlete. Some kids are aggressive as hell. Some are pretty aggressive. Some are, starting out there, not sure, what do I do? So you have to bring the kids along that are unsure of themselves. You have to throw gasoline on the fire of the athlete who thinks his poop doesn't stink, and get him, tell him how great he is, and show him how to beat the monster, how to beat Godzilla, how to knock people down. So you try to identify who you have in the room, who you're coaching to, what is his or her skill set, and then drill and teach and polish that skill set, and they'll have a lot of success. And then that success breeds more success. They feel good about themselves, and they know that the coach knows them, and so the more success they have, the more they'll listen to the coach. Whereas if coach says, you can stand up and you're tall, you come on, just try it a little harder. After about 6 months, and he realizes he can't get off the bottom, he realized that his coach shouldn't be a coach at all, and shouldn't be his coach. So you lose the respect of the athlete, and then you struggle as a coach when the team, I don't want to say turns on you, but in the locker room when you're not around, does coach know what he's talking about? I've been trying this stuff for a long time, and I can't get it. Either I have no talent whatsoever, or coach is off in la la land somewhere. So I'll come back to you now, and I'll shut up and let you ask a couple questions about what I just covered, or ask a different question. I have a lot more to talk about in different areas, but I'm sure I've opened up a few thoughts in your head.
There are two schools of thought when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, and I'm pretty sure this applies to wrestling too. What you just said, that is it better to know 100 techniques pretty well, or be perfect at 3 or 4 techniques that work for you? Because sometimes I think your body talks to you. Some techniques, become more efficient for you over the time, and you tend to be more successful with them. You tend to go there more often when you're more successful with them. Although some other techniques take time to grow on you. You may not be able to make them happen on the mat, but eventually you hit it once, and then boom, next session you hit it again and again, although it took some time for them to grow. What's your opinion on that?
Well, it goes back to what I was talking about with your body type. In MMA, there's, you have your on your feet, and then you have down position, your techniques. In school, when you come back, your parents expect you to learn everything that the teachers are giving you. And in a classroom, that's intellectual stuff. And yes, I can tell you that Columbus discovered America, and that Russia is the largest country in the world by acreage, and I know different things. So it has nothing to do with my body type or my skills. It has to do with between my ears. And in MMA, between your ears, people have a tendency to think about education and sports. The more you know, the better you are. That may be true if you're on Wall Street and you want to become a millionaire or a billionaire. And that's okay if you want to be valedictorian of your senior class as being the smartest one. The more you know, the better you are, and better chance you have. So more is better in a lot of things in life. In sports, less is better. Finding a few things that your body can do that your opponents can't stop. If I do 100 things one time each, I'm not very good at 100 things. I may know them, but I'm not very good at them. Jordan Burroughs, he spends all his time on his double leg, period. in MMA is no different than wrestling. You have to minimize your skill set. Don't try to be a jack of all trades and a master of nothing. You want to try to be as, better than your opponent in these three things. And then put yourself in a position so that these three things are going to be what you go to. If you got short arms, you've got to back a guy up to the ropes or the fence. Get in close to him where the short punches work. If you're in the middle of the arena and you got short arms, you can't reach his face for punching. Okay, so you got to find a way of closing the gap, close the gap, and then pummel and push him against the wall where he can't back up, and then your short arms are at the advantage position. And again, figure out what you're good at, and now what do I need to do? What you're trying to do is bring out your strengths and hide your weaknesses. In reverse, you want to bring out his weaknesses and hide his strengths. When you do that, you'll dominate everybody that you compete against. Bring out your strong suits, hide your weaknesses, bring out their weaknesses, hide their strengths. If a guy is a really good puncher, I'll tell you 9 times out of 10, if he's really good striking on his feet, he sucks on the mat. If he's a wrestler who's turned MMA, he's going to beat your ass every day down on the mat. You don't ever want to go down on the mat with him. That would be a huge mistake. You've got to stay on your feet. So you realize, don't go down. He's a wrestler. Stay on your feet. He's not a striker. Now you have to bring out your striking. So it's where the battle is fought. If you are a great swimmer, and you're wrestling with somebody in the shallow end of a pool, pull him into the deep end where his swimming techniques work. And the short guy traditionally suck in a pool. They don't float really well because they're really short and powerful and strong. And I have an adopted son who's an Afro-American, who's a little short guy. And I used to wrestle him all the time in the pool. And I'd slowly work him. He never realized it. I would drill with him, and I'd slowly move him into the deep end where he was on his tiptoes. And I'd drown him. I'd kill him every time. How do you always win? Eventually I said, well, you dumb shit up. I pull you into the deep end where you can't get your feet on the ground, and you sink, and I'm going to win. Had you kept me in the shallow end, you'd have been in an advantage position. And he went, Dad, another lesson learned, So MMA is nothing different than any other sport. Bring out your strengths, hide your weaknesses. Bring out his weaknesses, make him hide his strengths, whatever that may be. If you're fighting a wrestler, don't get down on the mat. You're going to lose the position. Did I open up any questions so far? Or
do you watch MMA?
Do I watch MMA? Some of it, yes.
Do you know most of the champions right now are from Dagestan. They have a wrestling background. They like to stay on top and have you carry their weight and exhaust you by, when you're trying to build up, they will remove all your posts and put you down. And by the end of the round, you're minced meat. You don't have any power. That's what they do. And what you said about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think that's a flaw of in MMA, because in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you don't ever try to stand up. You're comfortable fighting off your back, so you don't develop the skill to stand back up. Sometimes you're losing the fight. You need to stand up, back up. But the Dagestani wrestlers will keep you down. What's the secret, in your opinion, to pin somebody down and keep them down?
Well, when they first started the MMA back in late 1990s, for the most part, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu started just cleaning house. They were the masters, and it didn't take very long before the wrestlers went, "Oh, I see what they're doing. Okay, I got it." And then it was clearly wrestlers, and since then it's been nothing but wrestlers. because they know how to make you carry their weight, exhaust you, and then beat the hell out of you. And you can't beat a wrestler other than being another wrestler, unless you are a wrestler and you're a stupid wrestler and you decide to play jujitsu with a guy on his back and you want to stay there because you think you're tough. You have to learn wrestling skills and how to you get the hell off your knee. In wrestling, they would teach, again, the 1842 coach who didn't know what he was doing would teach you how to tight waist and chop and so on. And even when I started wrestling, they were teaching the same thing. I go, Coach, it makes no sense. I want him to carry my weight. You should be screaming at me to get off my knees. When I'm on top of somebody, riding and holding on, if any part of my body is touching the mat other than my toes, I'm wrong. All my weight should be on him. All. If I'm on an elbow, if I have a hand on the mat, Schalles, you get your hand off the mat. Come over with a yardstick. Whack me in the ass. Get your knees up. Too many people, when they're in the down fighting position, put their knees on the mat. Oh my God. If you weigh 200 pounds, as soon as your knees touch the mat, 120 of your 200 pounds weight goes into the mat at your knees, and really your opponent is only wrestling an 80-pounder, even though you weigh 200, because you only got 80 pounds on him, because 120 pounds of it is your knees on the mat. Get up off your knees. Nothing should touch the mat except your two toes. And the rest of your body should be on him. Your hands should be on him. Your elbows should be on him. Your chest should be on him. If you put a hand down on a half Nelson and you on your toes, your hand, let me back up. If I stand up and I weigh 200 pounds, how much weight do I have on my left foot?
100 pounds.
Da-da, yes. Right foot, 100 pounds. If I put two hands down and have 2 feet on the mat, my weight has been distributed by 4 points instead of 2 points. So I have 50 pounds, 50 pounds, 50 pounds, 50 pounds. If I put my head on the mat and my hands and my feet, now I have 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. So every time something I own touches the mat, weight is distributed into the mat at that location, and it comes off of my opponent. That's not smart. You want him to carry all 200 pounds if you can, if that's what your weight is. You want him to carry 200 pounds, not 40 pounds. So you have to get your knees off the mat, hands off the mat, elbows off the mat, head off the mat, and keep all your weight on him. And that's a little technique in itself, just having different types of drills where you push into the guy with your legs, make him, or chop his arm, make him collapse, and put your body on top of his, and now start getting at least one of his appendages, like a right arm, a right wrist, left wrist, pull it in. So how many push-ups can you do? How many one-arm push-ups can you do?
A couple, maybe.
Couple, maybe.
Yeah.
Me too. Okay. If you have 2 arms, you can do 50 push-ups. You have 1 arm, maybe 10. So you are substantially weaker with 1 hand down versus 2. So when you're on top of somebody, tie up one of his arms. Get a one-on-one, a wrist, pull it in. So now he only has 1 arm to operate with. He's laying flat with his 200 pounds on the mat. That's what he weighs. And my 200 pounds on top of him, because that's what I weigh. And I've got an arm in. So now he has to do a push-up with 400 pounds. 200 of his, 200 of mine, good luck. It's easy to hold a guy down, but you got to get control of one of his arms. Now, he has, for the little joke here, he has 5 appendages. 2 medium-sized, 2 really big ones, and 1 really small one. Okay. All right, 4 appendages. 2 arms, 2 legs. Okay. Now, what do I want to attack? Do I want to attack an ankle? Do I want to pick an ankle up? His thigh is this big around. Why the hell am I back here picking up a leg, picking up an ankle? My arm is this big. His thigh is this big. Why are you doing that, Wade? That doesn't make sense. Why is your scrawny arm attacking his big thigh and thinking that you might win? Has someone dropped you on your head? The hell with his legs. Get up on the upper half from his chest to his shoulders and his head. That's where your chest should be. That's where your weight should be. And now you can pull an arm out from underneath him because it's my arm versus his arm, but it's really my arm and both of my legs pushing into him. So I have 3 appendages attacking his 1 appendage. Now I can get that one arm in, and now he's doing a 1-arm push-up with 400 pounds, 200 of his own, 200 of mine. So you always want to be from the mid-chest up on top of him, and then make him carry your weight. If you're sprinting and I don't give you a break, you sprint down, you stop, turn around, blow the whistle, you run back 50 yards, turn around and run back down. After about 4 or 5 of them, you're breathing pretty heavy. If I'm on your back and you have to carry me down 50 yards, turn around and carry me back, turn around with a guy that weighs 200 pounds and you weigh 200 pounds, how many sprints can you do now before you fall over with a heart attack? 2 versus 10 that you could do without. So if you make him carry your weight, it tires him out very quickly. It slows. He's going to run a 100-yard dash now, 100-meter dash now. I'm showing American. 100-meter dash. He can do it in 12 seconds. If I jump on his back, how long does it take him? 18 seconds? He's a lot slower than he was with nobody on his back. And if you have to carry me back and forth, you're only going to do it 2 times before you have an exhaustion, before you fall over versus 10. So if you make him carry your weight, you slow him down dramatically. So instead of being really, really fast, he's really slow. And you tire him out quick. Make him carry your weight. Get the freak off your knees. Just your toes should be on the mat, not your knees. You can watch so many videos of coaches in a room of allowing the kids to have their knees on the mat. No. It's like riding a horse. Get up and get on it. Yahoo! Now, you're not sitting on top of them like a horse and a rider, but you're pushing into them. So, again, once you understand those basic concepts, then the instruction that the coach will give you, you can break the instruction down to say, does it make sense? Based on what I now know about pushing into him, getting off my knees, getting up on his shoulders. Where does he think? Up here. Where does he breathe? Up here. What does he do from the waist down? Nothing. Why am I down there? I want to be up on his head trying to shut down his breathing or slow it down. I want to be up on his chest where his chest has a hard time expanding and expand to breathe. If I lay on it, it's harder for him to breathe. If I push his face in the mat, I'm starting to work on his thought process of wanting to quit. So you're always wrestling the guy from the mid-chest north, never behind. Leave his legs alone. You're fighting just monstrous power base. No, now once you understand these concepts, then you can take what the coach teaches you and go, does that make sense? And now you can identify what you should be doing or how you should politely ignore the coach. And I ignored the coaches constantly because they didn't know what they were talking about. They were great people, and they worked really hard, and they gave of themselves. But they gave of themselves what they were given themselves when they were athletes by coaches who didn't know what they were doing, because it all came from the 1842 coach who didn't have a clue. So you have to identify what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then go from there. So
how about head and spine alignment? In judo, they try to misalign your head with your spine, so you don't have strength.
Absolutely, that's another skill set. If you're going to do a back bridge, when your chin's in front of you, that's easy to do. If your head's turned to the side, you're a fifth as strong in your neck with your head twisted. I have a shirt that I wear when I teach, and it's a white t-shirt, and I took a black magic marker and I put different things on it. I have a 5 here in the center of the chest, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can, it's very visual. You can see. Now, if a guy's on his back and you pick his head up so his shoulders are on the mat for pinning in wrestling, if you put his chin on the 5 spot, okay, he has 5 left over. He's still pretty strong to push back. If you turn his head to the 6 position, it's a little harder to push off your back. If you get the head turned the whole way over to the 10 spot, there is no bridging. There, you think your damn neck's going to break. When you have a half Nelson, you grab the chin and you turn the head to the side. If scale 1 to 10, 10 being an Olympic champion, you'll pin 5, 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. If you pick his head up and put his chin on his chest here in the 5 spot, you'll pin the average wrestler a 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 a beginner. If you have a 6 wrestler who's a little bit better than half, average, and you turn his head to the 6th position, okay, then you have a chance of making him quit or pinning him. So it's just as easy to turn his chin from here to here. For you, no matter what your arms are strength-wise, it's just as easy to have his chin on the 5 spot or on the 10 spot. If it's on the 10 spot, I don't give a shit how good he is, what his titles are, I'm going to pin him. Because no one can handle a chin on the 10 spot and pick his head up. They're screaming. They want off the mat. They can't bridge, they can't fight, they can't, it's traumatic for them. But you don't have to have any skill set to go to the 10 spot. No more skill than the 5 spot. You just have to remember to turn his chin. And it's his chin, his neck turning this way and that way is not overly strong. It's not as strong as your arm is. You can turn his chin with your hand and he doesn't have anything to say about it. I don't care how strong he is, you're going to win the position. And when you get the chin on the 10 spot, oh my God, you think you're going to die. You can't wait to tap out real quick. It's a bear. So again, figuring out what your body is capable of doing, identifying what your coach is teaching, just ask yourself the question, does my body do what he wants me to do? If the answer is no, respectfully, coach, I'm not going to do that because I can't do that. If you're doing a double leg with Jordan Burroughs, double leg requires speed. And Jordan Burroughs has that, and he proved it again and again and again. Doesn't mean that, well, if I can't do a double leg, that means I'm going to lose I'm going to lose wrestling. No, not at all. There's 100,000 different moves in wrestling. Find 5 or 6 of them that work with you, for you, based on your body type. And you could be a world champion. You just have to figure out what you're good at, forget what you're not good at, and don't listen to coaches who tell you can do it when you know damn well you can't do it. And it'll be based on your height, your speed, your length, your intelligence. Just tie this way, control this, push into him. When he pushes back, snap him down. Okay, there you go. And then you drill the hell out of it so that he is exceptionally good at 2 things, 3 things. In America, a lot of high schools, their specialty is this or that. And, as a coach, you damn well better go over how do you counter the double leg for that team. So all week long before you wrestle them, you're working on countering the double leg because that's all you're going to see. And if you can shut down their best move, you have a chance of winning. When a jiu-jitsu guy's laying flat on his back, that's his best move. Don't get down and challenge him. He's spent more time on his back than you have between somebody's legs. And he's going to win the position every time. He hits his back, get out of there.
I also really like what you said about disrupting breathing patterns. So they don't breathe easily. Like you push their belly, and they have to exhale and lose their breath, and then keep them carrying that weight on top of their chest and belly, so they cannot breathe. They get tired way easier than when they breathe correctly. What's your opinion about rhythm in wrestling? Is it important? Rhythm, yeah.
Say it a different way.
So, for example, the pace and changing gears, going from fast to power to beat good wrestlers. Is that something that happens in wrestling?
Oh, how do you pace?
Yeah,
Pace yourself?
yeah.
Sure. A Maserati or a Ferrari will lose to a Volkswagen in a race when the Maserati runs out of gas. So, just because you are a Maserati, you are a Ferrari, you are a Testarossa, doesn't mean you're going to be an Olympic champion. My job, similar to what you just said, I'm going to run you out of gas. Dan Gable, one of our legends of wrestling in America, he was a very, very, very good wrestler. What he had more than anybody else, his gas tank was twice the size of anybody else's gas tank. And no matter how big an engine you had, no matter how good you were, when you no longer could breathe and you had no oxygen, you were going to roll over and get pinned. Gable would push you and push you and push you and pressure and change direction where you were always catching your balance until in the third period you're and then he'd take you down and turn you over and pin you. I mean, he was very good at running you out of gas. So that was a skill set that he had. I mean, besides being a very good wrestler, his major skill set was how could he run you out of gas. So you have certain skill sets. Jordan Burroughs being faster than anybody else. That's his skill set. He won multiple world titles on his speed. Was he smart in a lot of areas? Absolutely. Did he have other physical skills? Yes. But he knew what his number one skill was: speed. And he always went back to the speed. And he would win because he was faster. The object in sports is to bring out your strengths, hide your weaknesses. So when you have somebody who's stronger than you are, don't get in and start battling power with him. But if you push him and pressure him, push him and move him around, because the stronger the person is, the more oxygen he needs to feed the muscles that he's pushing you with. So if your object is getting breathing harder and harder, so you're pressuring him without getting into a battle with him. You don't get caught chest to chest with him, and where the power becomes the thing that wins. David and Goliath. David knew he shouldn't get in too close to Goliath, so he stayed his distance and threw the stone and killed the Goliath. He wasn't going to get in close. So, Goliath dominated everybody, but everybody was stupid. They got in close and tried to battle him, face to face. And Goliath, because of his size and his power, always won. Or at least that's what the stories say.
In your experience, what's the best way to develop stamina and a great gas tank? Is it drilling? Is it wrestling? Or sprinting and running and swimming and all these athletic ways to develop a great gas tank? What's the best way?
Okay, I understand the question. Wrestle. You don't have to run. It's nice to run. It's a change of pace. You don't get hurt running, where you could maybe wrestling. But you're training to win wrestling by running, by lifting weights, by climbing rope. Why? How's that going to make you a better wrestler? Now, yeah, you're stronger. Of course, I get that. But you can get that similar strength by, getting in and wrestling. And if I'm going to spend an hour wrestling and an hour running and lifting and climbing rope versus 2 hours of wrestling, I'm going to be probably as in good condition in 2 hours of wrestling as I am with 1 hour of wrestling and 1 hour of climbing rope and running and drilling. But I've spent 2 hours learning my trade versus an hour you're learning your trade over here. So over the course of 5 days for the week, you know, 4 weeks for the month and so on, over the course of the year, I'm going to be twice as good at wrestling as you are. Now, I can't run like you can run. I can't climb rope like you can climb rope. I can't jump rope like you can jump rope. But you don't score any points doing that in wrestling. You don't get your hand raised by being faster and being able to run miles, and I can't run that many miles. I want to do twice as much work on the mat and be twice as good on the techniques on the mat as you are, because you're only spending half the time. If you go to 6th grade and stop going to school, when I go to 12th grade, when we have tests, I'm going to win. I'm going to be smarter. Not that my brain's bigger or I have a higher IQ. I just have 12 years of technical training in a classroom, and you have 6. I'm going to win. In wrestling, I'm going to have 2 hours every day on the mat wrestling versus an hour of this and an hour of something else. I think, you should get the hell off the track. I mean, I don't care if I can run fast or how many laps I can run. I want to know, can I make you eat mat? Can I get on top and make you say uncle? Can I win? And I'm going to practice what I need to practice in order to win, and that's on the mat. The more positions I can get into, the more ways I can figure out how to get into them or how to get out of them when I get caught in something.
I really like I watched your instructionals, as I said before. So you have a concept, the clock concept that you have, that to beat high-level athletes, you have to modify your techniques so that even a great athlete will not be able to escape by posting a leg or change the angle so that your techniques works against all levels. That's how I get it anyway. Can you explain that? I know you don't have a mat and you cannot draw a clock on the mat, but generally, can you explain that concept?
Well, wrestling mats have a circle in the center. So I just say that's the face of a clock, wristwatch. Now I know a lot of digital watches these days, so it's Mickey Mouse's arms, and but it's a clock.
They still exist.
And your opponent, his head always points at 12 o'clock. His feet always point at 6. No matter where he is on the mat, the clock moves with him. His head always moves at 12 o'clock, points to 12. So now you have 4 appendages, just like 4 legs on a table. And if I'm going to drive the guy at 9 o'clock, he has 2 appendages. Okay, let me lay on my belly. If I lay on my tummy, my left arm is responsible for anything that happens between 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock. Those 3 hours, my right hand is responsible for, period. Whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's wrestling, it doesn't matter. My right arm is responsible for 12 to 3. My right leg is responsible from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Left leg, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So I have all 12 hours covered by 1 or 2 appendages. If someone's going to drive me or push me forward onto my nose at 12 o'clock, he's got to chop and get both of my arms out from underneath me if you're going to push me at 12 o'clock. If you chop my left arm, my right arm is still at 12 o'clock. So you can't push me forward at 12 o'clock. If you have my right arm chopped, my left arm will block me, keep me from going down on my nose at 12 o'clock. So you have 4 appendages responsible for all 12 hours on the clock, and 4 hours on the clock, 12, 3, 6, and 9, you have 2 appendages. At 12 o'clock, you have left and right hand. At 3 o'clock, you have your right hand, right leg. At 6 o'clock, you have both legs. At 9 o'clock, you have your left leg, left hand. Now, in between those hours, let's say at 10:30, okay, if I grab your cross face and pull your left arm in, the left arm is responsible between 9 and 12. And I chop that arm in. If I push the guy at 10:30, he has nothing to stop him from rolling over to his back at 10:30. He can't get his left leg up because his left leg's responsible from 6 to 9. He can't get his left leg to 10:30. He can't get his right hand that's responsible for 12 to 6 over at 10:30. So he's going to roll over. So where do you drive? If you're going to chop tight waist, if you chop his left arm, you want to chop and pull him at 10:30. If you're going to reach across and get his right arm and pull it in, you want to drive him at 1:30 because his arm's 12 to 3. You want to go halfway in between. So if you want to knock the guy over, it's pretty easy if you know what angle, where you want to drive him to. If I chop his left arm in and I drive him at 9 o'clock, he's going to put his left foot out at 9 o'clock and go, no. Just changing an hour and a half of where I drive makes him fall over. It's pretty easy to make a guy fall over if you know what you have a hold of and what hour on the clock you're supposed to drive at. That's true for, taking a guy over with a half Nelson with chicken wing bar arms, half Nelson cradles. You drive, you knock a leg out. If you took a table and you chopped one of the legs off the table and threw it away, will the table fall over?
Yes.
Table won't fall.
Oh, if you chop just one.
If you just chop one leg, take it, throw it away.
Yeah, I mean, the balance would be sensitive, but will probably not fall. Yeah.
But if you put 1 pound,
Yeah.
if you put a book up in the corner where that leg was,
Yeah.
boom, the table will fall. So what we're trying to do is get a leg of the table out from underneath the table and then put pressure on that point, and the table will fall. Your opponent will fall. And if you give it any type of energy, he not only will fall, he'll roll over because he can't get a hand out as a brace. If you cut a tree down and all the tree has all the limbs still on it, you can't roll that tree, and you can't make the tree roll. If you chop all the limbs off of it and turn the tree into a telephone pole, then the tree will roll because the limbs are gone. Your body, here's the telephone pole, here's the limbs of the tree. If you pull the limbs of the tree in, the tree will roll. So, if you want to roll the guy over, you've got to get at least one of the limbs of the tree in and then roll him at that angle. So if you have a choice of attacking this arm or that leg, what the hell are you touching his leg for? His leg's this big, his arm's this big. Go to the arms. You always want the arms. Because all his wrestling is done, for the most part, he learns how to wrestle with his hands. He doesn't learn how to wrestle with his feet. Now in jiu-jitsu, they're pretty good with wrestling with their feet too.
Yes.
Wrestling, they don't have a clue what they're doing with their legs, basically from an attack or defense position. But you always want to attack the arms. They're the smallest, they're the easiest, and that's where they learn all their techniques are based on what their hands do. If I can control one of your hands, I'm going to make you eat a lot of mat, and I'm going to make you run out of gas because I'm going to have all my weight off on the toes of my feet, and the rest of my weight's going to be on your chest, tiring you out.
Last question, Coach. Actually, two last questions. One of them is legal pain. That's a concept that you popularized. It explains a lot on how to dominate high-level competitors, where you cannot win by technique alone. You have to push them to the next level to make them quit and win over them. So can you explain that real quick?
Well, I don't do anything quick. You've probably noticed already.
Yes, no problem. We have time. It's a digital format. We can have it as long as we want.
If I can, my job is to make them quit. And when you quit, you're quitting between your ears. That's an intellectual decision of, I don't want to be out here anymore. I can't win. I'm getting hurt. I can't catch up. I'm so far behind in points. You have to dominate and make him want to quit. And if I can control the neck, I'm controlling the breathing. and fatigue makes cowards of us all. When you're out of gas, you're out of gas. And so I want to make you work harder trying to get up when I have one of your arms out from underneath you, so you're a three-legged table trying to get up, and I'm pushing over the one limb that's missing, and I'm trying to push your face across the mat, and I want my weight on top of your chest so you can't expand your chest and breathe. I'm trying to make you quit. And, very few people get pinned just on technique alone. That's why you very, very seldom see a pin in the first minute of a wrestling match. Once you tire them out where they're just, and they can't pick their head up anymore, and they just, you just slowly wear them down. You got to put some pressure on them. And if you do put a guy on his back right at the beginning, you got an animal. I mean, he's not going gently into the good night. He's going to fight you and hard because he still has full tank of gas. You're put pressure on him. Every bit of pressure you can put on him is pressure he can't use against you offensively or defensively to get off his back.
Please explain why you call it legal pain.
Oh, well, legal pain is if I twist your arm. Now, this isn't legal in wrestling, but if I twist your arm, ow, 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 you're not thinking about anything. Your mind goes to the pain. And right away, you're thinking about, what? And you forgot about the first commandment of the 10 commandments of wrestling, thou shalt not be pinned. You forget commandment number 1. You don't give a shit about commandment number 1. You're thinking about, let go of my chin. You're hurting my neck. I can't breathe. You're laying on my face. I can't get any oxygen. My job is legal discomfort, is to make you want to quit because you can't breathe, because you can't see, because your neck's hurt, because I'm doing things legally that are painful. Legal discomfort. Now, I could hold your arm out, twist it, and break your elbow. That's probably, in wrestling, that's not allowed. That's not legal. Now, it's painful as hell, but it's not legal. So I would lose the match because I did something illegally. So I want to twist the arm just enough to make you think your arm's going to break without it breaking. So now I'm within a range of legal, but it hurts like hell. And once, when you're trying to do something and part of your body is screaming in discomfort, you're not thinking about winning. You're thinking about, how do I reduce the pressure on my arm so I can get my hand back so I don't feel the pain. You forget about your offensive goals of winning the match, and you start thinking about, how am I going to stop this from hurting? And then I'll worry about how to win. Well, my job is to put legal discomfort introduce legal discomfort into the match.
That's a great concept. It has really influenced my my work as a coach. Last question, coach, and then I'll let you go. What advice would you give to young wrestlers who start now, in order for them to have a great career, avoid injuries, and as much as possible, and enjoy the hell out of wrestling?
Well, identifying what your skill sets are, what's your body type like. Are you fast? Are you strong? Are you short? Do you have leverage? Do you have reach? And then try to find a coach that can explain to you what techniques you should be doing based on your skill set. What happens is coaches will teach what they were successful with. If they were really good at a double leg, if you had a heavyweight, retired wrestler who was a heavyweight, who's now a coach, his best move was a side roll. I call it a fat man roll. He just grabs the wrist when you're on top and he rolls, and you end up underneath him. That's the number one move of a heavyweight. Now, not the really skilled heavyweights. I'm talking about the guys that are in the UFC. But in wrestling, 90% of heavyweights, they do a side roll. Okay, that's their skill set. So my job is to figure out what their skill set is and take it away from them. Almost every technique has counters to it. If a guy takes a Russian 2-on-1, I grab his wrist, and I'm controlling his one arm with my two. Russian 2, 1, 2, 2 on 1 of his arm. And then they teach that, and they're very good at it. And if you don't know what you're doing, you spend the whole time trying to get your arm back. And by pulling your arm back, they let go of it. Your hand comes in, and they come in and follow your arm in to a double leg or a bear hug or whatever. So, that's their skill set. How do you counter it? If they have a Russian 2-on-1, this is the only way to counter a 2-on-1 Russian. Not to put, the worst thing you could do is put your hand on his face and try to push him away. It looks like it works, but then they block your arm up in the air.
They go under.
They go under. Russian 2-on-1, you take your free hand and you go underneath your hand, underneath your arm, and you put your hand, either catch him with, now with your thumb, under the, like you're grabbing his pec, thumb in here, there, or flat on his chest. But your hand is underneath your arm. And then you just turn and stay square with him. He's trying to go around, just turn with him. But as long as your hand's underneath your arm, you've stopped the 2-on-1. There's nothing he can do to you. Over top, they'll post it up and they'll come underneath you. You go under. Now, under is very good. That's a 6 on a scale of 1 to 10. If I can get under and get my thumb in the armpit, I'm pushing my thumb in. I'm trying to hurt you under your rib cage here, pushing the thumb into you, and then at the same time grabbing your chest muscle, squeezing. That's really sensitive. It makes you want to let go of the Russian 2-on-1. So, just learning there's so many little techniques that coaches have no clue, and I wouldn't teach the whole team that. I'd wait, Bob, this week you got Johnny. Johnny's got a Russian 2-on-1 from hell. He's really good with it. This is what we're going to be practicing all week long, under and block. So I'm not teaching them. Most coaches are educators, teachers from school and so on. And they know that they want to teach you everything in the book of history book or math, whatever. So they know that quantity equals quality. The more you learn, the better you are. No. The more you learn in wrestling, the weaker you become. Because you have to practice 28 moves. No, let's say you have to you want to learn 120 moves, because boy, if you only know 80 and I know 120, I'm going to beat you. So for a 2-hour practice, which is 120 minutes, I'm practicing every technique for 1 minute. So I'm 1 minute good at 120 things. I can't do anything in a match because I've only drilled it 1 minute out of 2 hours. You can't expect me to be successful doing something that I've only done for 1 minute in a match. It's not how much you learn, it's how much time you spent on the few things that you know you can do. Identify your strengths and your weaknesses. Figure out, okay, I'm going to be a double leg and a high crotcher. Okay, and on the bottom I'm going to stand up, on the top I'm going to chop and tight waist. Okay, for 4 things. Now, for the next 2 hours, you're going to spend 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes on those 4 things. And tomorrow you're going to do 30, 30, 30, 30 again on those 4 things until you are a master of those 4 things. No one's going to beat you. You don't want to be a jack of all trades in wrestling. It sounds good. I know all this. I can show you that. I'm smart at this one. How many matches you won? Well, I'm still young. Yeah, right.
Let's play a game. As a coach, I want to identify which techniques to show to my students regarding wrestling. Okay? So, if you had to pick one technique to teach for 2 people who are on the same height and weight, which one would it be to take somebody down? Beginner. Single leg, probably?
It wouldn't be something that they see every day. Every coach teaches a single leg and a double leg and a high crotch. So every kid in every room in America or in Turkey drill and see this move over and over again. So they also learn the defense to the move. I want to find something that my opponents don't see very often. You know, a duck under is just as powerful as a double leg, and which is just as powerful as a high crotch, which is just as powerful as an ankle pick. The greatest coach we have in America today, Cale Sanderson from Penn State, he would ankle pick anybody and won the Olympics in an ankle pick, won the worlds in an ankle pick, won 4 NCAA titles with an ankle pick. But he did it from different positions. But, you know, it was just as good as a double leg. Now, everyone teaches double leg in football tackles, but you know, an ankle picker has to have long arms, you know, taller. They can look you square in the eye and still be picking an ankle off from underneath you.
Is it about finding ways to go to your strengths from all positions?
So I like to consider techniques to be smart. I prefer smart techniques. Technique that you would try, that if you get it, you score points. If you don't get it, you didn't lose points. It's not an all or nothing thing. I don't want to get in underneath a guy on a double leg and not get it and have my mouth on the mat and I'm hanging under 2 legs trying to figure out how the hell I get in here and how the hell am I going to get out? How the hell am I going to get out of this thing? So what would I teach? Again, you know, if you had the short, stocky speedsters, you know, I teach double because they're never going to get stretched out. They're going to make the double leg work. Divide your team into not 50-50. This year you might have 30% are tall, 70% are short. Okay, so you have this group's over here and this group's over here, and you're teaching 2 different things. Next year it might be 60% tall, skinny, 40% short. Okay, it changes just based on who shows up for practice. You know, so you have to change what you're teaching based on who's in your room. So you're never going to go 50%, 50%. You just tall, short. Whatever the numbers are, happen to be, that's what the numbers are. Tall and short. Powerful and skinny.
Thank you, Coach. It has been an honor. You shared some great insights. Where can people find you, and are you available for clinics?
Oh, well, you know, you could probably, and you're done here, when you put this all together, you can, you know, throw my email in there, which would be appreciated.
I'll do that.
And I always, you know, anymore, I prefer making trips because my wife and I are retired, and now I'm done, you know, going 22 miles over to another high school. And, you know, I'd rather see Greece. I'd rather see Italy. You know, I travel with, you know, scientific wrestling a lot now, where I get a chance to meet people from different countries, eat different cuisines, you know, and share what I know about the sport. I know a lot about anything that has to do with mat, you know, whether it's jiu-jitsu, karate, hapkido, you know, wrestling, sambo, you know, it's all the same to me. It's attacking the body.
I have to tell our viewers that, in my opinion, and I have a huge collection of wrestling clinics and instructionals, you're probably the best instructor when it comes to a scientific way to approach wrestling. The details that you share, you don't see them often. Most people teach technique quickly, but they don't give you the whys and all the details that make it work. Thank you again, sir, for doing this, and hopefully we'll get to talk again in the future.
Yeah, and if they want to go to Fanatics Wrestling for the tapes,
those are great tapes too. I have them.
Yeah, well, you know, if you want to get an idea, an early taste of Wade, I must have 15. I've sold more tapes than anybody in the world. My instructional tapes are #1. And
for a reason.
It's for a reason. Just pick one, buy it. It's what, for $70, $50, something, I don't know.
But they're worth the price.
they're worth the price, and see if you like them. And you know, if you like one, buy two. If you like two, if you want to see me in live and hear and actually work with you and actually cover your problems in your program in your country, you know, have me over. You know, I'm easy.
Coach, if I'm not mistaken, your son is in one of those tapes, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I thought so. So thank you, sir, and I wish all the best to you, and thank you for your wonderful career and the science that you shared with us. Take care.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Ciao.